Get her off the range! Now! The voice from the tower cracked with urgency, but she didn't even flinch. A single breath, a steady trigger pull, the shot echoed across 1,800 meters of desert wind and landed impossibly through the same bullet hole she had just made. No spread, no deviation, just precision. The technicians stared. The SEAL trainees went silent. Then the general stepped forward, eyes locked not on the target, but on the faded scar beneath her left shoulder blade. One he remembered. No civilian should have. You're watching Veteran Biker. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for stories they tried to bury. The desert sun hovered high over the Grayson military complex, casting sharp shadows across the concrete lot that stretched from the armory to the sniper range. The heat shimmered over the sand-banked walls and steel structures, but inside Range 6, the air buzzed with tension that had nothing to do with temperature. Major Denton stood with arms folded, sunglasses perched on the bridge of his nose, watching the intake list scroll across the tablet in his hand. A training session for SEAL team recruits had just wrapped. What followed was supposed to be a demo, some experimental shooting with a new AI-assisted rifle model, the XQ-15. Denton had cleared a few civilians under testing agreements. Most had been observers or contractors, but one name stood out. "Serena Wolf?" Denton muttered. His lips twitched in restrained amusement. "This one's a little old for toys." He glanced across the asphalt where a thin woman approached from the security checkpoint, mid-50s, maybe older. Slate-grey cargo pants, plain high-collar shirt. No insignia. Her gait was calm, neither quick nor slow, and her face was unreadable beneath a pair of matte black shooting glasses. She carried no bag, only a rifle case in one hand and a folded document in the other. "Great," Denton muttered. "Another weekend warrior." Behind him, a small group of young officers from the tech division had gathered, loitering just out of line. One of them, Lieutenant Burrows, snorted softly. "Looks like someone's grandma got bored with knitting." "She's got clearance," said a specialist from Ops, "signed by Coltech themselves." Denton raised a brow but said nothing. The paperwork looked legitimate. Still, he walked over as she laid her case gently on the bench beside firing lane 3. "You here to observe, Miss Wolf?" "I'm here to shoot," she replied without looking at him. "Right," he said, half smiling. "We don't usually let civilians handle the XQ-15, but hey, paperwork's in order. Are you familiar with the system?" She opened the case. Inside was a matte black rifle body with alloy joints and carbon fiber plating. The XQ-15 prototype shimmered under the fluorescent range lights, but instead of mounting the digital scope provided, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a small, battered optic. It looked analog, custom. "You know," Denton said dryly, "that's not regulation." She paused for half a breath, then mounted the scope anyway. Her hands were precise, economical, like this wasn't her first time putting together a weapon under pressure. A few of the junior officers chuckled. One mock whispered, "Maybe she thinks this is a Call of Duty tournament." Denton crossed his arms again, his voice louder now. "You get one round at 1,200 meters. Let's see what you've got." Serena didn't respond. She lay prone, adjusted her elbows against the rubber mat, and sighted in with a steady breath. The range officer tapped the signal. Target acquired. The timer started. The shot cracked through the silence. Even before the monitor registered the hit, everyone could tell by the sound. Tight, controlled, no hesitation. A red dot flared on the screen. Dead center. No one spoke. "Beginner's luck," muttered Burrows. "Give her one more," Denton said. Another round slid into the chamber. Serena exhaled slowly. The second shot followed. Another red dot, same impact zone. Denton blinked. He turned to the range tech. "Confirm grouping." The tech leaned over, then looked up slowly. "Overlap. Direct hit." She punched the same spot twice. That broke the silence. "You're kidding." "Nope." Burroughs gave a short laugh. "Okay, she got lucky twice. So what?" Denton's expression shifted. The XQ-15's recoil pattern was advanced but still unpredictable at 1,200 meters. This wasn't just luck. And yet, he tapped his comm, "This is range 6. Civ shooter just hit 2 center mass at 1,200. Pull her access."
"Say again, sir." "She's off the range."
"No civilian gets 3 shots on that rifle without an eval." The tech looked uncertain. "But she's cleared." "I said pull her," Denton snapped. Serena was already standing. She removed the scope, wiped it down and returned it to her jacket. As she turned to leave, Denton caught her arm, not aggressively but firm enough. "You trying to make a statement?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Not yet." Then she walked out, leaving the target still blinking red on the monitor. 2 perfect hits, no spread, no error. Behind her the room buzzed with unease. Somewhere deeper in the complex, alerts were being logged. Flags were raised, but no one, not Denton, not Burroughs, not even the systems, could define exactly why. Not yet. The sky above Grayson turned from molten gold to ash gray as the sun sank behind the high desert ridgeline. The rifle range had emptied out after the afternoon drills, leaving only the hum of floodlights and the faint buzz of electrical panels cooling in the dusk. Somewhere between the barracks and the main hangar, Serena Wolf walked silently past the perimeter fences, her boots crunching against gravel, a folded document still tucked beneath her arm. No one stopped her. She didn't return to the visitor dorms. Instead, she moved to the edge of the range complex where storage crates were stacked like barricades, shielding an old concrete bleacher long since retired from official use. She climbed to the top step and sat. From her back pocket she pulled a cloth-wrapped object, faded, carefully folded. She unraveled it slowly to reveal a battered field notebook. The edges were burnt, the spine frayed, and a single bullet graze tore across the back cover. Her hands didn't shake. She opened to the first page. A name was scrawled in black ink, the letters smeared by sweat and time. Below it, a symbol, 3 vertical lines inside a circle, scratched in over and over again, as if repetition made it permanent. "For Unit Echo. Never forget." She stared at it for a long while. The wind shifted slightly, carrying the dry scent of sand and oil. Serena reached into the notebook's inner fold and pulled out a folded photo. 5 people in tactical gear, faces mostly obscured by dirt and blur. One of them, in the center, looked just like her, younger, less hollowed out. Voices rose in the distance. A group of young officers crossed the lower yard toward the mess hall, laughing loudly and without weight. Serena refolded the notebook, placed the cloth back around it, and tucked it beneath her thigh. Minutes passed. The lights flickered as the automatic grid reset for night mode. Footsteps approached, heavy, purposeful. She didn't look up. "Ms. Wolf?" She turned slightly. A man in standard duty fatigues, late 30s, with a trimmed beard and tired eyes, stood a few feet away. "Captain Ramos." "Tech liaison," he said, gesturing to his badge. "I was told you'd requested auxiliary observer credentials for tonight's SEAL training run." "I did." He hesitated. "You're not supposed to be on base outside hours." "I'm not inside." He cracked a half smile. "Fair enough. I've got your pass. You'll be allowed to observe from range 4 during the live night fire. Non-engagement status, strictly observational." She took the small plastic card. The barcode glowed faintly. "I'll be at the East Gantry," he added. "If you need to." "I won't." She stood. The photo was already back in her pocket. "The notebook is one." Captain Ramos watched her descend the bleachers without another word. Something about her movements made him uneasy, measured, exact, like she wasn't wasting a single step. By the time she reached range 4, the training session was already underway. Green tracer rounds zipped through the darkness in irregular intervals, interrupted by barking instructors and the rapid fire of semi-automatics. SEAL recruits moved between barricades in teams, logging hits and misses on a centralized server. Serena stood behind the barrier tape, arms crossed. A lieutenant stepped toward her with a grin. "You must be the Civvy observer. Word is, you've got a better eye than half the roster." She didn't reply. He gestured to the observation platform. "You'll be allowed one live trial if you want. You know, for morale." "Morale? Yeah, the guys like a good show." She took the platform without another word. A different rifle was offered, another XQ-15. This one hadn't been modified, but she declined the offered scope and attached her own again, under the curious stares of 4 nearby officers. "Anyone scoring over 90% on this simulation is considered elite," someone muttered. Burroughs was there too. He folded his arms with a mocking smirk. "Bet she doesn't clear 50. The lights dimmed. Targets began moving across the terrain. Wind machines activated. Debris was blown across the field to mimic combat interference. A voice counted down. 3, 2, 1. Serena lay flat, sighted in, and fired. The first round struck a moving plate at 700 meters. The second clipped a dummy target ducking behind a sandbag wall. The third tore through a swinging sensor plate mid-turn. The screen began tracking her hit rate. After the fifth shot, it blinked red, a voice from the booth. "System delay. Syncing optics calibration." She kept firing. Each bullet met its mark. The impact logs streamed like code on the technician's console. By shot 15, the observers had gone silent. Ramos had arrived and stood behind the glass, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Shot 20 hit a steel sensor behind a running target drone. Shot 23 bisected a simulation hostage's threat zone with a margin of error so small the system flagged it for manual review. By shot 30, the screen froze. A buzzing tone pierced the silence. "System error," one of the techs whispered. "This can't be right." "Hit rate logged at 100%, said another. "Target distribution fully randomized, wind adjusted. There's no pattern." Burroughs stepped back. "What the hell is she?" Ramos leaned forward. "Run diagnostics. Check for sensor lag. There's no lag. Then run it again from scratch." The senior instructor entered the booth. "No need. The data's clean. But just log it on the field." Serena stood slowly, eyes on the frozen screen. The display still blinked 100%. She walked off the platform without a word, stepping past the officers who now moved aside instinctively. In her pocket, the notebook pulsed faintly against her leg, its cloth damp with sweat. She didn't look back. Behind her, the range buzzed again, not from gunfire this time, but from arguments, flagged reports, and voices calling up the chain of command. Somewhere above them all, in the control tower, a phone began to ring. The phone rang 3 times before anyone dared to pick it up. In the top tier of the Grayson control tower, Lieutenant Maddox answered with clipped breath, wiping a sheen of sweat from his brow. "Range control, this is Maddox." A pause. Then a slow, gravel-edged voice replied, "This is General Ainsley. Put me through to whoever's in charge of the firing logs from Range 4. Now!" Maddox nearly dropped the receiver. "Yes, sir. One moment." Down in the data hub, 4 technicians worked in frenzied silence around a console filled with red-flagged impact data. The screen was frozen on a flat outline of the range with 30 highlighted dots, every one of them a confirmed center mass hit. Anomalous, it had declared. Probabilistically implausible. Statistically impossible. Captain Ramos stood stiff-backed beside the booth, staring at the terminal. A junior analyst tried to speak, but nothing came out. Maddox appeared seconds later, flanked by 2 MPs. "General's on site. He'll be here in 5. 5 what?" asked Burroughs. "Minutes." No one moved. For 5 minutes, even the digital hum of the monitors seemed quieter. When the general arrived, The sound of his boots against the metallic gantry made several of the junior officers flinch. Ainsley was not a loud man, but his presence filled the room like gravity. Late 50s, broad-shouldered, with silver hair cropped close to his scalp and eyes that had seen wars no one talked about. He didn't speak until he reached the display. Then he folded his hands behind his back. "Who pulled this log?" A technician raised his hand slowly. "Sir, it came from Observation Deck C, live fire, civilian shooter, all flagged by auto diagnostics." Ainsley didn't blink. "Shooter ID, Serena Wolf." The general stared at the name on screen for a full 10 seconds. "Say it again." "Wolf. Serena." She was cleared as an auxiliary observer by Tech Liaison. Ainsley looked over at Ramos, who straightened instinctively. "She used her own scope," Ramos said quickly. "Didn't violate protocol, just swapped out optics." All hardware checks passed. No trace of AI manipulation. Why wasn't this escalated sooner? Ramos hesitated. "We thought it was a fluke," until she repeated it. Ainsley turned to the screen. "Center each impact," the technician typed. One by one, the red dots zoomed in, each confirmed with millimeter precision. "No spread," whispered Maddox. The general remained silent. "Sir," said Ramos, "what do you want us to do?" "Bring her to tactical room B." "But she's a civilian," I said. "Bring her." They didn't argue again. Minutes later, Serena Wolf walked calmly through the east corridor of the complex, flanked by 2 armed escorts. Her pace never changed. No questions, no reaction. Just the same even rhythm as when she first entered the range that morning. In one hand, she still carried her scope. In the other, her pass, unscanned. The tactical room was cold and windowless, with white walls and steel fixtures. Ainsley stood alone at the center, a manila file open on the table. Serena stepped inside, the door sealed behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ainsley finally said, "I saw you shoot." She remained still. "You hit 30 out of 30 targets under full interference, including wind drag and randomized movement. No predictive assistance, no AI compensation. I'm aware. You knew you were being recorded." "Of course." He took a slow step closer. "So why do it?" She looked at him then. "Because I wanted to see if I still could." The words hung in the air. Ainsley didn't move, but something behind his eyes shifted. "I don't know how you're here," he said, voice dropping. "Because last I checked, the only person who ever scored full marks on a blackout range simulation was declared Kia in Mosul. A sniper named Serena Wolf." She didn't respond. He stepped around the table, eyes narrowing. "I read the after-action report. A squad went missing during Operation Nighthammer. The official file says all Echo units perished. No remains recovered. I know what it says, but you're standing here." "Yes." "Then either the report lied, or you did." She finally spoke with weight. "I didn't write the report." He studied her. "You understand the implications of that. If the Echo unit wasn't lost, if someone survived, that would mean the command knowingly buried the truth." She didn't blink. Wouldn't be the first time. The silence returned, sharper this time. Ainsley walked back to the table and tapped the file. "There's nothing here. No records after 2017. No family, no service logs, no discharge. You don't exist, Ms. Wolf. Neither did Echo." For a second he almost smiled. Then he pointed to the scope in her hand. "That's not standard issue." "No." "You built it?" "I rebuilt it." He raised a brow. "From what was left," she said. The door hissed open behind her. Ramos stepped in, holding a small data slate. "Sir," he said, glancing at Serena, "we've got a deeper scan on the impact cluster. Diagnostics confirm the grouping matches an older Echo range style. No known contemporary pattern matches. Show me." Ramos turned the slate. The screen displayed a concentric impact map, precise and spiraling inward. Ainsley stared at it, silent. He didn't need the confirmation. He already knew. "She's the one," he said softly. Then he looked at her again, this time with less suspicion and more memory. "I had a man in Echo," he said. "Saw him pull a lung shot from 2 clicks through fog." "I remember," Serena replied. "That was Sergeant Lorne." Ainsley's jaw tensed. "He died," she continued, "trying to protect the evac bird. It never came. No one knew. I did." He sat down slowly. "You want to tell me why you came back?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I didn't come back. I walked in." He nodded once. "You understand we'll need to escalate this. Do what you must." He looked at her hands, still steady, still calm. He thought about what kind of mind could make shots like those under pressure. What kind of person could survive alone for weeks, betrayed and written off, and still walk back into a military complex with nothing but a scope and a stare? He closed the file. "I want you to stay," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Tomorrow morning," Ainsley added. "Range 7. Controlled scenario. Seal oversight. You shoot again. Why? Because some things can't be faked, and if what I suspect is true..." He paused. "Then we're going to need you." Dawn broke over the Grayson complex in thin ribbons of pale orange light, casting long shadows across Range 7. The air was dry and still, filled only with the low mechanical hum of sensors powering up and wind monitors spinning slowly atop the control towers. Everything had been calibrated twice. Targets are arranged at staggered distances. Drones pre-programmed to simulate hostiles, civilians, and moving obstructions. Command had spared no effort. This was no longer a demonstration. It was an evaluation. General Ainsley stood on the elevated observation deck, flanked by 2 senior analysts and a representative from the Joint Advanced Warfare Division. None of them spoke as Serena Wolf stepped onto the field. She wore the same outfit as the day before. Grey cargo pants, high-collar shirt, matte shooting glasses. The only new item was a black armband issued that morning to indicate live authorized civilian presence. The weapon had already been chosen. An unmodified XQ-15 pulled directly from inventory, serial verified, and free of any external tuning. The optics, however, were her own. She'd cleaned the battered scope by hand, adjusted the zeroing without any tools, and mounted it in complete silence. Burroughs watched from the lower tier, this time with no snide remarks. He hadn't spoken since the debrief the night before, neither had Ramos. The mood around the range had shifted. No one laughed anymore. Every tech, every officer, every recruit watched her in the same way one watches a storm forming on the edge of the horizon. At 0600 sharp, the range instructor stepped forward. "This is a precision validation. 30 targets, varying distances. Wind and elevation will change every 2 minutes. AI assist is disabled. Score will be logged in real time." He turned to Serena. "Ready?" "Yes." "Begin." She dropped to the prone position without hesitation. Her hands moved quickly but without a rush. Each motion is practiced, efficient. As if her muscles remembered something, her voice no longer needed to explain. She loaded the first round and took aim. The first shot landed square in the chest of a half-profile target at 900 meters. A small puff of dust marked the strike. The digital console marked the hit and moved on. The second target emerged from behind a shifting platform, angled against artificial wind. Another shot, another confirmed impact. The observers began whispering data, groupings under 4 centimeters, correction margin less than 0.2 milliradians. By the 5th shot, Ainsley's jaw had tightened. By the 10th, the representative from Joint Warfare spoke for the first time. "Is that pattern familiar to anyone?" One of the analysts nodded slowly. It's not algorithmic, it's spiral-centered, old-school echo-style mapping. The 11th shot passed clean through the skull plate of a bobbing dummy target moving laterally at 1.3 clicks. 12th shot, wind gust accounted for in real time. 0 deviation. 13th, hit between 2 simulated hostages. By shot 15, the central terminal beeped twice. System anomaly detected, one of the techs said. Hit distribution is exceeding predictive thresholds. Serena kept shooting. Shot 20 hit a drone mid-flight, severing its propeller and sending it into a controlled crash. Burrows stepped forward instinctively, then caught himself. Shot 24 split a swinging sensor plate already riddled with holes, leaving a clean new impact in the dead center. Shot 27 came during an artificial dust flare, visibility reduced to near 0. Still landed flush. The technicians whispered now, huddled. Their monitors buzzed and the hit map began forming a concentric pattern on the screen. Ramos exhaled. She's painting it. What? She's drawing the mark, 3 lines inside a circle. She's doing it with bullet paths. The final 3 shots were fired in 10 seconds. All 3 found targets at vastly different elevations, one uphill at an extreme angle, one crosswind at 400 meters, and the last a small, fast-moving drone barely larger than a pigeon. 30 hits. No spread. The monitors froze again. On the screen, the bullet groupings formed the unmistakable symbol of Black Echo, 3 vertical lines, evenly spaced, within a ghostly implied circle formed by the outermost hits. The range instructor removed his headset. Range test complete. Shooter logged full sequence. Nobody clapped. The silence lasted long after she stood and dusted off her pants. Serena didn't look up at the observation deck. She didn't acknowledge the murmuring that followed. She simply walked off the field as the wind picked up and carried the spent brass casings in a soft trail behind her. In the tower, Ainsley rubbed his hands slowly together. "It's her." The Joint Warfare representative said nothing, just stared at the screen. Then, without taking his eyes off the symbol, he spoke. "We'll need to lock down the footage." "Already done," Ainsley replied. "And the logs?" "Isolated to internal servers, no transmission." Ramos entered the control room a moment later, carrying a data drive. He handed it to Ainsley. "All camera angles, ballistics data, clean and untampered." "Thank you." Ramos hesitated. "Sir, she did it on purpose." "That pattern, I know. Why?" Ainsley looked at the screen one last time. The symbol remained. Old ghost, old wound. Because she's not hiding anymore. Down below, Serena walked into the service tunnel that ran between Range 7 and the restricted armory. She wasn't supposed to be there, but no one stopped her. The cameras turned away without a prompt. Inside, she sat against the cool wall and removed her shooting glasses. Her eyes were dry but tired, not with exhaustion but with memory. From her jacket, she pulled the notebook again. This time, she flipped past the first few pages, past the names, the sketches, the range logs. She stopped at a hand-drawn map, outlines of a village, an LZ, a series of blackout zones, and beside it, a line in fading ink. They left us. We stayed, we survived. She traced the ink with her finger. Behind her, the hallway echoed with footsteps. It was Ainsley. He stopped a few feet away. "They'll want you debriefed, possibly detained. You understand that?" "Yes. They'll question your mental state, your motives. They always do. And when the footage leaks, and it will, they'll have to choose. Accept the truth or silence it again. They'll choose the latter." He nodded, then crouched beside her. "You marked the field. That wasn't for them. It was for us, for the ones still listening." Ainsley placed the data drive beside her notebook. "It's all here, if you want the world to see it." She didn't touch it. He stood again. "We have a term for people like you, not just a survivor, not just a ghost." She looked up. You're a relic, a living contradiction. She smiled faintly. That's generous. They're going to come after you, Serena, I know. And when they do, she stood. Let them. The debriefing room was colder than the tactical suite had been, with walls coated in acoustic foam and no windows to mark time. Serena Wolf sat at the lone metal table, both hands folded neatly in front of her. The light above flickered twice before steadying into a white glare. No one had spoken to her for nearly 10 minutes. She didn't seem to mind. Behind the two-way mirror, General Ainsley stood with arms folded. Beside him, Director Halvorsen from Joint Advanced Warfare had returned, this time with 2 aides and a classified binder tucked under his arm. The aides took notes. Halvorsen didn't blink. She's waiting, Ainsley said. I know. You saw what she did. The pattern, the hits, the optic signature. Halvorsen opened the binder and laid out 2 photos, grayscale satellite images from 2017, a blacked-out village grid, smoke columns, a partially destroyed LZ marked X-34. One image had red circles over a perimeter, Mosul. Operation Night Hammer, Halvorsen said. Final position of Unit Echo before contact was lost. Intel blackout followed. No evac. The official report declared complete loss of the squad. But we never confirmed remains, Ainsley added. Because there were none. Satellite thermal scans were corrupted, UAVs pulled due to active air defense, and we scrubbed the mission records before extraction. Only one signal remained live beyond the 72-hour mark. He flipped another page. It was a grainy still frame, heat sig only, of a lone figure lying prone behind a half-destroyed barrier, muzzle flash caught mid-burst. No other contacts, no name. Just a timestamp, day 46. We assumed it was ghost data, Halvorsen muttered. You were wrong. Ainsley pressed the intercom. Send her in. The steel door hissed. Serena entered calmly, a clean field jacket now covering her arms, the scope from the range still clipped to her belt. She didn't sit. Halvorsen remained standing. We need to confirm your identity. You already have. Formally, no. He narrowed his eyes. You realize what you've done, displaying classified tactics, signaling a symbol that hasn't been seen in public view for over a decade. I wasn't trying to be seen. Then what? Serena stepped forward and placed a single item on the table, her old field notebook. Halvorsen didn't touch it. She flipped it open to a page halfway through, one covered in hand-drawn trajectory patterns, target sequences, weather conditions, notes in shorthand. Ainsley recognized the format instantly. Range mapping logs, but unlike digital archives, these were personal manual notations done under pressure, sometimes in blood and dirt. Serena slid the book across the table. That's my record. No rank, no name, just the truth. Halvorsen stared at the page. Why come back now? Because someone has to remember what it cost. Ainsley stepped forward, voice quieter now. Serena! What happened after the comms blackout? She didn't answer immediately. Start from the last confirmed report, Ainsley continued. She drew a breath. We held the perimeter 3 days past the fallback order. No air support, no extraction. We were told to dig in, so we did. Then we got overrun. 2 from our unit were captured. 1 went radio silent. Sergeant Lorne took a round defending the fallback position. I dragged him to the southern wall. He bled out there. Ainsley lowered his eyes. The last drone sweep we saw was on day 11. After that, nothing. No supply drops. No signal. You survived 47 days. Yes. How? Serena looked directly at him. I remembered what you taught us. That silenced the room. Halvorsen tapped the table. You didn't try to reach command? I did. Every 3 days. No response. Eventually the battery died. I stopped trying. And the symbol... Serena unzipped her jacket slowly. Beneath it, her left shoulder was bar, scarred and weathered from sun and time. But near the back of the shoulder blade, darkened against the skin, was a distinct mark. 3 vertical lines... encased in a circle of scorched tissue, a branding, a choice. I did it myself, with a field knife and a heating coil from a broken scope. No one spoke. It wasn't to remember, she said. It was so that when they found my body, they'd know someone stayed. The aides paused their note-taking. Even Halvorsen blinked. Ainsley stepped forward. "Serena!" "They didn't come because they were told not to. We were told not to." She turned her head slightly. "You signed a confirmation of loss. I did. You didn't even wait for proof. There was pressure to close the op. Congressional oversight, civilian targets. It got political." Serena let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. It always does. Halvorsen sat. "So what now? You expect reinstatement, a commendation, a reversal of an op that technically never happened?" "No, I expect silence." That surprised them. "I'm not asking to be restored. I'm asking you to stay out of my way." Halvorsen leaned forward. "You're too visible now. Then let them look." He glanced at Ainsley. "This is your mess." Ainsley nodded. "Give her freedom of movement," Halvorsen said finally. "But no more public ranges, no more symbols. If anything leaks," Serena cut in, "it already has." Halvorsen narrowed his eyes. "You leaked it." "No, but the people watching me, they did. Your system's full of ghosts, always has been." He stood sharply. "We can scrub it. You can try." Ainsley held up a hand. "She doesn't want to burn this place. She wants to walk away." Serena said nothing. Halvorsen looked between them. "Fine, but if even one journalist shows up at a base with a picture of that scar, I'll disappear again," she said flatly. After a long pause, Halvorsen nodded. He turned and left, his aides behind him. Only Ainsley remained. He approached Serena slowly, almost cautiously. "You did what no one else could," he said. "I didn't do it for them, I know, but they'll write stories anyway, try to mold it, package it, erase the shame." She looked at him, then stopped them. "I'll try." He hesitated. "They gave me something for you, backdated, cleared." He handed her a small case. Inside, an old badge dulled with time. It read, "Chief Marksman, Echo Unit." Her name is engraved beneath in small letters. She held it for a long moment, then closed the case. "I'm leaving tonight." "Where to?" "Nowhere loud." "Will I see you again?" She shrugged. "Depends on what gets buried next." Ainsley extended his hand. For a moment she didn't move, then she shook it. Brief, firm, final. He watched as she walked out, the case tucked under her arm, the scar once again hidden beneath cloth. In the silence that followed, Ainsley looked down at the field report on the table. He didn't read it. He simply closed the folder, wrote one word across the top in pen, and walked away. Classified. The footage leaked 72 hours later. No one knew exactly how. The data had been air-gapped, stored on isolated servers, reviewed only in person, with zero wireless transmission permitted. And yet, somewhere between a classified terminal in the Grayson control tower and a secure archive room at Joint Command HQ, someone had copied the footage, someone who knew what it meant. The video appeared first in a private military contractor forum under the tag Unreplicable. It showed only the shots, no name, no commentary, just a woman lying prone in the dust, firing an unmodified XQ-15 across range 7, hitting 30 moving targets with surgical precision. The camera pans slowly to the field, where the bullet impacts formed an unmistakable symbol, 3 vertical lines inside a circle. By the time the Department of Defense issued a takedown request, it had already been downloaded over 2 million times. It spread from encrypted forums to closed SEAL chats, then to online sniper communities. It reached veterans boards, leaked intelligence groups, and rogue military historians. By day 3, a theory began to form. The woman was a ghost from a long-buried mission. A shooter trained for environments no longer acknowledged. A relic of a classified program called Echo. They gave her a name, the Phantom Trigger. Serena Wolf didn't speak to the press. She never appeared on camera. When approached by a veterans foundation, she declined to comment. When someone slipped a microphone under her gate, she broke it in half and mailed it back. But the name stuck. Not because she embraced it, but because no one else could own it. At Grayson, General Ainsley read the internal bulletin from Washington with a grimace. The breach had triggered a congressional review. Oversight committees were spinning up inquiries. Several senior staff had been reassigned. Joint Advanced Warfare denied involvement but quietly issued a Level 4 containment order on all remaining Echo data. Ainsley wasn't surprised. He'd expected worse. In the field, things changed more quickly. At the Sniper Training Center in Fallon, Nevada, recruits began sharing the footage like contraband. Instructors pulled back and forth on how to explain the shot pattern, whether it was real, staged, or simulated. Some called it a miracle, others a myth. But a few, the ones who understood bullet math and breath control down to the bone, just nodded silently. A former Delta operator at Fort Bragg said, "Whoever she is, she's better than anyone I've seen on record." Back at Grayson, Ramos intercepted a memo flagged by the internal AI. It had recorded an anomaly in a conversation between two junior analysts. They say she used a civilian scope. Doesn't matter. She beat every military standard on that range. She shouldn't exist. Neither should half the people in Echo. That's the point. Ainsley reviewed the transcript. He didn't order it deleted. He let the rumors spread. 2 days later, he received an unmarked envelope at his residence. Inside, a single grainy photo printed on matte paper. It showed a young Serena Wolf standing beside 5 other Echo operators, dust-coated, faces hardened. All of them were wearing the same scarred symbol on their shoulders. No message, no return address. Ainsley burned the envelope but kept the photo. Meanwhile, somewhere in a small cabin near the Arizona border, Serena Wolf sat at a wooden table, rebuilding her scope. Not because it was broken, because she didn't want her hands to be idle. Outside, the world had begun spinning around her name. The chatter turned into articles. The articles turned into inquiries. A book was rumored. A movie deal was proposed. She rejected all of it. Then one afternoon, a different envelope arrived, handwritten, sealed in plain white paper. Inside was a letter, no signature. Just 2 sentences: target lock at 1,800 meters, Phantom protocol still active, and beneath that, a single location coordinate. She folded the letter and burned it in her sink. The next morning she was gone. 3 weeks passed. Then came a final leak, one the government couldn't trace or stop. A second video, uploaded to an anonymous channel, showed a lone shooter in the snow. No visible face, same posture, same weapon. The wind howled. The target was nearly invisible, a marker on a distant ridge, barely more than a shadow. One shot. The camera zoomed in. The bullet struck the exact center of an old impact hole. A comment appeared beneath the video. Still 100%. They knew who it was. And no one could stop her. The briefing chamber at Joint Advanced Command in Arlington was nothing like the field offices at Grayson. No wind, no dust, just sterile silence, the kind that came with thick walls and polished floors. General Marcus Ainsley sat before the Joint Oversight Subcommittee, a half-moon of senators and military auditors staring down from behind microphones and nameplates. Cameras weren't allowed, but everyone in the room knew this would make the minutes. Someone would leak it. They always did. Senator Carolyn Wexler cleared her throat. "General, let's start with the footage. You've confirmed it was authentic?" "Yes. Unaided fire. No digital enhancement. No tampering." "Correct. And the identity of the shooter?" "Classified." Her brow lifted. "General." "With respect, Senator, she was listed as Kia under a sealed operation. No formal reinstatement, no declassification, so no, I cannot give you a name." A moment of tense silence. Ainsley didn't blink. Another senator leaned forward. Is it true this individual outperformed every standing sniper standard? That she demonstrate techniques not taught in the current doctrine? Yes. And that the symbol displayed in the shooting pattern matches one associated with Echo Unit, a black cell which, according to DoD records, does not exist? I can't speak to that. Can't or won't. Ainsley didn't respond. The room shifted. Senator Wexler adjusted her glasses. We've had reports of a second video, uploaded after the first leak. Was that from the same individual? Most likely. Can you verify it? No. She hasn't contacted me since she left Grayson. A murmur passed down the table. Another auditor leaned forward. General, let's stop circling. Do you believe this woman represents a threat to the operational security of the United States military? No, but she's operating without oversight. She's not operating. She's surviving. There's a difference. The senators whispered again. Wexler tapped her pen. Let me ask a different question. If she were to be apprehended, what would you recommend? Ainsley didn't hesitate. Leave her alone. Wexler raised an eyebrow. That's not a recommendation, General. That's defiance. Then consider me defiant. The aides began scribbling. The auditors exchanged glances. Somewhere in the corner, a retired brigadier general smirked before catching himself. Wexler leaned back. You realize this stance puts you in conflict with protocol oversight law and direct Pentagon guidance. I do. Why take that risk? Because I signed the order that left her behind. This is how I balance the scale. The room went still. Later, in a quiet hallway, Ainsley sat alone on a bench beneath an old operations mural. His aide, Lieutenant Hart, approached cautiously, holding a sealed folder. Sir! Priority envelope came in while you were inside. Ainsley opened it. Inside was a transcript, recorded chatter from an encrypted channel monitored by Dyer Blackwatch. 2 lines, Echo Remnant verified. Zeroing protocol reactivated. Below that, a note from the Director of Strategic Threats. We believe someone is targeting the subject, possibly internal, possibly us. Ainsley folded the paper. Where's it coming from? Hart hesitated. Looks like Fort Jensen. Tier 3 asset pool. Private authorization. Non-Pentagon chain. Contractors unclear. But someone's funding the trace. Ainsley stood. Get me secure transport. We're going to Jensen. That night, under blackout conditions, Ainsley arrived at Fort Jensen's covert monitoring hub. The lead tech, a civilian named Cross, greeted him with a tablet. Sir, we didn't expect you. You weren't supposed to. Cross nodded and opened the tablet. We logged a signal bounce 3 days ago. Static signature tied to cold echo channeling. Very faint. Could have been a glitch. But then we saw this. He pulled up a heat map, zoomed in on northern Arizona, 1 frame every 6 hours, all blank, until one flickered, a silhouette, faint, lying prone on a rock ledge. Ainsley leaned in. That's her. Maybe it could also be a projection. What got us wasn't the image, it was what came next. He switched to audio logs, static, then, buried deep in distortion, a gunshot, single, flat, controlled, then silence. Cross spoke softly. The same drone that picked it up lost all telemetry 2 minutes later. Someone's ghosting us. Can you trace the round? Trajectory said 1,800 meters. Impact zone confirmed. No wind drift. Our drone dropped mid-hover. Autopilot override wiped. Ainsley exhaled slowly. Someone's trying to provoke her. Cross hesitated. Or test her. Either way, shut it down. If any assets are in that zone, pull them. They won't listen to me. Then they'll listen to the general who created the last standing record of Echo. He left the base before sunrise. 2 days later, a senior advisor from JSOC arrived unannounced at Ainsley's home. The conversation was short. We know who she is. I assumed so. You're protecting her. I'm respecting her. Not many people still would. Then that's the problem. The advisor stood. You may be called to testify again, possibly under closed conditions. Ainsley said nothing. The advisor paused at the door. Do you think she's still out there? I know she is. What makes you so sure? Ainsley didn't answer. But in his desk drawer beneath old commendations sat a new envelope. It had no return address. Inside, a single casing, hand-polished, fired, and beneath it a note written in block script. Don't speak for me, just listen. The van crawled across the gravel road just outside the New Mexico border, its matte black exterior absorbing what little moonlight filtered through the scattered clouds. Inside, 4 men dressed in dark tactical gear sat in silence. Their patches were blank, no unit tags, no rank. The only insignia was a small triangle etched onto the right sleeve of each jacket. Tier 3 asset retrievers, contracted, deniable, and well paid. She was sighted here 3 nights ago, the team lead murmured. Thermal ping, static drone, heat bloom disappeared in under 3 minutes. Probably a scout camp, probably already gone. So why are we still chasing? One of the others asked, voice low. Because the client doesn't believe in ghosts. The van stopped near a ridgeline. A narrow foot trail led upward into the rocks. No lights, no markers. The lead agent checked his wrist display. Elevation gain 460 feet. If she's here, she'll be above the wind line. Move quietly. They advanced, step by step, boots sinking into soft sand. The moon dipped behind cloud cover. Only the occasional flash from night optics painted the path ahead. As they reached the top, the lead agent raised his fist. Everyone froze. A silhouette stood 20 meters away, still, facing the horizon. They raised their rifles as one. Hands where I can see them, the lead barked. The silhouette didn't move. A beat passed, then another. The team spread out. 2 agents flanked wide. The lead approached slowly. Serena Wolf, you are in violation of Section 49G Echo Protocol. By order of Joint Command, you are to be remanded for containment and debrief. Still no movement. He stepped closer. Last warning. He reached out, grabbed the figure by the shoulder, and it crumpled. A decoy, layered fabric, heated from within by a power cell rigged to simulate body warmth. No rifle, no gear, just a note pinned to the chest. 2 seconds late. Then something clicked behind them. A flashbang detonated at the base of the ridge, throwing the agents to the dirt. Dust erupted, optics scrambled, comms cut. By the time they recovered, she was gone. Back at their forward base, the report was logged, redacted, then suppressed. The word engagement was omitted, so was the decoy. What remained was a simple line, no contact. 2 days later, another attempt was made, this time in a rail yard near Colorado Springs. Same team, same silence. A sensor camera picked up her heat signature entering a cargo car. When they breached it, the car was empty, just another casing left behind. Unfired, polished, balanced upright like a monument. After that, the sightings slowed. She never stayed in one location for more than 8 hours. No digital trace, no cache trail, no facial match. Yet each failed pursuit left something behind, a signature that wasn't a signature. A strip of range tape was tied to a tree, a torn page from a field manual, a hand-drawn circle with 3 lines scratched into frost. In Washington, analysts debated whether she was operating alone. Behavioral models failed to predict her movements. Some speculated she was getting inside help. Others whispered about echo remnants reactivating, a phantom network long thought dead. No one could prove it. At Grayson, Ramos reviewed each incident report. The language grew colder with every entry. Subject evaded. Subject possibly aware of surveillance. Subject anticipated approach. By the 5th report, he stopped printing them. Instead, he opened the old data archive where the original Echo training protocols were stored, buried under layers of compartmentalized access. The final file he accessed was labeled Strike Contingency, Unrecoverable Asset. It listed one name, then it simply read Do Not Engage, Observe Only. He called Ainsley that night. Sir, they're going to escalate. I know. They're moving from retrieval to removal. Ainsley was silent. Do I stop them? You can't. But you can slow them. Feed them noise. Force them wide. For how long? Long enough for her to decide what comes next. Across the country, Serena moved through rural byways and mountain trails. She changed vehicles twice, burned 3 sets of clothing, used cash pulled from caches buried over a decade ago. Her face never appeared on a camera, not once. A weapon stayed disassembled in pieces across a travel bag. She hadn't fired it since the Ridge Bluff, didn't need to. The message had been sent. One night, she camped near a dry riverbed, built no fire, just sat beneath the stars with the notebook open on her knees. Inside, a page she hadn't touched in years, a list of names, crossed out one by one. Not enemies. Echo. She ran a finger under the last name still visible, then closed the book. Elsewhere, in a bunker 2 states away, a man who had once worn the same mark, 3 lines inside a circle, received a message through a burner channel. No sender, just 3 words, protocol not over. He stared at it for a long time, then rose from his chair, reached behind a hidden wall panel, and pulled out a canvas bag. From within, he removed an old sidearm and a patch. Echo wasn't dead, it had just gone quiet. Until now, the first time Serena Wolf stepped into the open since the range test at Grayson, she chose a public train station outside Omaha. No one recognized her. She wore a charcoal trench coat and carried a plain satchel. A slow drizzle coated the platform in silver light as the last outbound line of the day hissed to a halt. She didn't board. Instead, she walked alongside the train, her eyes scanning the windows as passengers disembarked. Then she saw him, dirty jacket, beard overgrown, left wrist wrapped in gauze. He limped when he moved, but his eyes were still sharp despite what they'd taken from him. Serena nodded once. He followed. They moved without speaking to the service corridor behind the terminal. Rusted ladders and half-lit signs flanked the narrow hall. At the end was an old fuse box. Serena knocked 3 times. Pause. 2 more. The wall opened. A man with dark hair and 1 artificial eye stepped aside to let them in. Inside the maintenance sub-level, 6 figures sat around a portable heater. Blank stares, mismatched gear. Every one of them marked D. Scarred, limping, hollowed out by a decade of being told they never existed. Echo. Remnants. Survivors. One of them stood. Serena recognized him immediately. Keen, former spotter. She'd thought him dead in 2017. He didn't smile, but he gave a short nod. We thought the protocol was dead. They brought it back, without asking, without honor. Another woman, taller, with burns over half her face, stepped forward. We've seen the footage. They're trying to own the story, package it, bury the rest. Serena dropped her satchel. Inside were 7 drives, marked and labeled by hand, full logs, range data, Black Echo training footage, code signatures. It's all here. If we go down, they go down with us. Keen looked around the room. You sure about this? Once we start, there's no retreat. There wasn't the first time. There won't be this time. The woman with the burn spoke again. They'll come for us. Tier 1, not contractors, not clean. Let them come, Serena said. 2 hours later, a secure military node in Virginia received an inbound trace from an anonymous packet dump. Within the file, video evidence, code lists, deployment maps, and a single message overlaid on all footage. You erased us. We learned to be invisible. Now you'll learn what we remember. Back at Joint Command, analysts scrambled to contain the leak. One of them turned to a superior officer and asked the obvious. Do we hit back? No. We control the narrative, deny and discredit. If any of them go public, we label it fabricated, rogue, PTSD damaged. And if someone believes it, then we activate the new protocol, silence by any means. The following morning, a convoy of unmarked vehicles departed a base in Missouri headed west. On board, surveillance teams, portable jammer towers, and one man in grey civilian clothing with a silver briefcase chained to his wrist. His name wasn't on any roster, no badge, no call sign, only one instruction. Track the signal, find Serena Wolf, do not fail. But Serena had already moved. By the time the convoy reached Omaha, she was in the wind again, leaving only heat ghosts and burned packets behind. Keene and the other Echo remnants scattered to dead drops across 5 states, carrying duplicates of the drives, physical photos, tactical recordings, and one shared directive. If one of them disappeared, the rest would release everything. 3 days passed. Then came the first assault. A safe house near Cheyenne was breached. No survivors. A charred circle was all that remained. Inside it, 3 shell casings and a photo of a young sniper team. The next day, the footage went live anyway. A news outlet in South Africa, unaffiliated, picked up the dump and broadcast it raw. Clips appeared on alternative forums, mirrored by sympathizers and archivists. The network spread faster than the disinformation campaign could contain it. At Grayson, Ramos received a ping on his private server. One image. Serena was sitting alone, back turned, her scar barely visible in the desert light. Below it, a caption. We're not ghosts, we remember. He didn't share the image. He deleted it. Then he stood up, walked to the range and locked down firing lanes 1 through 7. No one asked why. Across the country, in a hospital with no name on the front door, a man with deep scars across his hands received a package. Inside, a drive, a note, a familiar mark. He inserted the drive into an offline machine. The screen came alive with footage, names, orders, footage of failed extractions. At the end, a final video played. Serena, in full daylight, turns toward the camera, calm, resolved. Echo was never perfect, but we were honest. We didn't fight for medals. We fought because someone had to. Now we fight so no one forgets. The man closed the laptop, then reached for his bag. The signal spread, not loud, not coordinated, but consistent. From Montana to Florida, across back channels and burned IDs, the survivors woke. Most had never spoken to each other since 2017. Some didn't even know who was still alive, but the symbol was enough. 3 lines, 1 circle, protocol remembered, and across every system that tried to silence them, one phrase kept reappearing, attached to no sender, broadcast without a signature. Still 100%. The wind moved low across the plains of western Kansas, bending the tall grass in long uniform waves. It was the kind of landscape most eyes skipped over, too flat and too open to matter. But for Serena Wolf, that was exactly the point. She lay prone beneath a camouflage tarp 2 miles south of a derelict grain elevator. The elevation was slight, but enough. Through her scope she could see the road leading in from the north, the radio tower disguised as disused farming equipment, and the dirt trail that looped behind the southern ridge. All of it is empty. For now, her breath was slow, pulse even, gear quiet. She hadn't moved in 93 minutes. Across a secured channel, Keene's voice whispered through her earpiece. Convoy ETA 10 minutes. 5 vehicles, 1 drone, no chatter. Serena blinked. Package, grey coat, silver case, passenger seat, 2nd vehicle. Confirm. She shifted slightly, adjusting the bipod under her rifle. Around her, the Echo perimeter was already set. 4 others, all positioned with overlapping sightlines. No heavy firepower, no explosives, just terrain, patience, and memory. This wasn't a fight, it was a reckoning. At Joint Command, the briefing had been short. Find the broadcast source, retrieve or terminate. Deploy assets quietly, no media, no noise. The order came down clean, but the maps had been chosen for them. Leaks ensured that. They walked into it on their own. At 11:07 a.m., the first vehicle crested the ridge, a matte black SUV, windows tinted. Behind it, a larger troop carrier, then 3 more identical cars. A small surveillance drone hovered overhead, scanning left to right. Serena didn't flinch. She let them cross the kill line. Not yet. The convoy stopped in front of the grain elevator. Men stepped out, all in civilian clothes, but movements too tight, formation too clean. Contractors tier 1 or better. The one in the grey coat remained seated. Then the radio clicked once. That was the signal. Serena pulled the trigger. The first shot cracked through the wind. The drone dropped from the sky before its alarm could trigger. The convoy scrambled, men shouted, weapons drawn, but they had no angles, no cover, nothing but an open field and bad assumptions. Keen's voice, left 2, suppress. 2 shots rang out from the east. 1 target went down. Another ducked behind the tire of a vehicle. Serena shifted, fired again. The tire exploded. The man rolled, clutching his shoulder. From the far ridge, the burn-face woman, Echo call sign Wick, lit a magnesium flare. The field burst with white smoke, disorienting, loud, but deliberate. The convoy fell back toward the tower. That's when Serena moved. She rolled, packed her weapon, and sprinted low through the grass. Every motion is calculated. Each footstep is chosen. By the time she reached the tractor path behind the elevator, the second phase had begun. A recorded message played over hijacked comms, projected straight into the convoy's channel. "This is Echo. You buried us once. You failed. We don't want blood, but we won't let you own silence." The grey-coated man emerged, holding his briefcase tightly. He looked around, confused. He wasn't field-trained. That was his weakness. Serena stepped from cover, weapon raised. He froze. "Put it down," she said. He complied, slowly, trembling. One of the contractors aimed at her from the side. Before he could fire, a single crack echoed from the ridge. The man dropped. Keen, always exact. "Why are you here?" Serena asked the man. "I'm just the courier." "Of what?" "The list. Names, locations, shutdown plans. Who sent you?" He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. They knew you'd intercept. They want a trade. For what? You disappear again. Forever." She stared at him, then opened the briefcase. Inside, a tablet, active, unlocked, a set of files ready for transfer. Names, coordinates, target tags, fail-safe logs, Keen said in her earpiece. "They're going to wipe everyone connected to Echo," Serena murmured. "Old or active." The man spoke again. "They won't stop if you keep leaking data, but if you disappear, if you vanish again, maybe they'll close the file, maybe they'll bury it for good." Serena stared at him. "You're wrong. They'll never stop. Because it's not about me, it's about control." She walked backward, tablet in hand, weapon raised. "This message is already out. You're just late." From the southern ridge, Wick triggered the second flare. Bright red, 3 local signal towers were overloaded. At least 40,000 nearby devices received an emergency feed. On every screen, a black circle. 3 vertical lines, then the footage, raw, unedited, Echo training, abandonment, recovery logs, names of operations that never made the news. The last image, Serena. Not young, not angry, just present, alive. The convoy scrambled. Too late. Local law enforcement, responding to false emergency alerts, surrounded the area. The contractors dropped their weapons, blending into the ground, hands raised. Serena vanished into the wheat. At Joint Command, an emergency board was called within the hour. The damage was done. Disavowal wasn't enough. The footage was everywhere. Senators called press conferences. Veterans organizations issued statements. For the first time, people asked questions out loud. Who was Echo? Why were they erased? And why did one woman survive everything just to be hunted again? Ainsley sat alone in his office, lights off. In front of him, the same casing Serena had sent weeks ago, still gleaming, still precise. He reached for a pen and wrote one line across the back of a legal pad, still 100%. Somewhere west of the plains, Serena sat inside a silent farmhouse with Keane, Wick, and two others. The broadcast was done. The names were out. There was no going back. But that was never the plan. Serena looked at the team. No more hiding, they nodded. We don't win with bullets. What then? Keane asked. We win because we remember. The hearing room inside the Capitol's West Wing was packed before sunrise. Cameras weren't allowed, but that hadn't stopped the journalists, aides, and senior officers from flooding the corridors. The Subcommittee on Intelligence Integrity had been called into emergency session under direct order of the Senate Majority Leader. The leaked Echo footage had reached critical mass. It could no longer be ignored. General Marcus Ainsley sat at the center of the curved desk, his nameplate visible in bold brass. He wore a full-dress uniform, medals clean but understated, jaw tight. Opposite him, the senators filed in, led by Carolyn Wexler. She'd fought to keep this public. Now she was the one forced to control it. General, she began, voice neutral, you are here voluntarily? Yes. And you understand the implications of your testimony? I do. Let's begin with the obvious. The footage released last week confirms the existence of a covert military unit known internally as Black Echo, which operated from 2012 to 2017 without congressional oversight. You were a senior advisor during this period. Confirm or deny? Confirm. The room reacted in ripples, scribbled notes, darting eyes. And you are aware that the official record listed all Echo operatives as Kia following Operation Night Hammer. I am, but at least one survived. Serena Wolf. Yes. Why was she never recovered? Ainsley's hands remained still, because no one looked. And who made that decision? I did. The senators paused. Wexler leaned forward. Are you admitting that you knowingly filed false closure reports to protect the Department of Defense? No. I'm admitting I followed orders I should have disobeyed. A longer silence this time. The stenographer's keys tapped like hammers. Wexler looked down. Let the record show that General Ainsley has accepted command responsibility. Behind the hearing chamber, in an observation room behind mirrored glass, Serena Wolf stood with her arms crossed. She wore a civilian coat, hair tied back, no insignia. Wick stood beside her, along with Keane, both silent, both watching. They weren't supposed to be there, but the subcommittee staff had quietly authorized private observation. No recordings, just presence. In the chamber, another senator spoke. General, are there any surviving members of Echo you're aware of? I have reason to believe there are several. Are they a threat to national security? No. Are they operating under any foreign influence? No. Then why did the department initiate active surveillance and retrieval protocols? Because they were afraid of what Echo remembered. The room tensed. Cameras in the hallway caught the buzz. Live commentary began to flood media networks. For the first time, a name once buried inside redacted files became a trending headline. Senator Wexler pressed on. General, do you believe the Echo unit acted lawfully in releasing the footage? I believe they acted justly. That wasn't my question. No, it wasn't. She narrowed her eyes. You're still protecting them. I'm acknowledging them. That's different. At that moment, one of the doors at the side of the room opened. A staffer stepped in and whispered into the ear of a ranking senator. He paled slightly. Wexler noticed. "What is it?" The staffer handed her a sealed folder. She opened it. Inside, still images from a live feed. Outside the building, protesters, veterans, journalists, dozens, hundreds, signs, names, the symbol. 3 lines inside a circle. The word below it, remember. Wexler exhaled slowly. "General, one final question. If you had the chance to do it over, would you have given the order to leave Echo behind?" "No. And if they returned today, what would you do?" "I'd salute them." That line echoed, across the room, across the country. Behind the glass, Serena remained still. Wick leaned in. "Now?" "Not yet." Downstairs, inside a press-safe conference room, Ramos stood in front of 5 independent journalists. He laid out files, video, field maps, unredacted orders. He didn't give a statement. He just showed them what had been erased. Meanwhile, in a closed briefing in the White House Situation Room, the National Security Advisor paced the floor. "We can't contain this much longer. If Echo goes public, there's going to be a reckoning." The president didn't answer. He only watched the feed. In Kansas, the farmhouse where the last Echo meeting had occurred was now empty. But in its place, another drop. A hard drive, public key encrypted. It would be discovered by a reporter 2 days later, and it would confirm everything. Back in the observation room, Serena took a breath. "I'm ready." Keene nodded. Wick didn't smile, but her eyes brightened slightly. One by one they stepped out of the shadows, not in uniform, not with a banner, just themselves. Downstairs the hearing broke into chaos. Wexler turned as the doors opened, and Serena Wolf walked in. A gasp, a dozen whispers. Security froze. The room didn't know whether to stand, to question, or to salute. Ainsley rose to his feet, and for a long second no one said anything. Serena took the empty seat beside him. She faced the panel. "I wasn't asked to speak, but I think you've heard enough from everyone else." Wexler blinked. "Miss Wolf, I'm not a symbol. I'm not a legend. I'm not your ghost. I'm what happens when you pretend people don't exist and they survive anyway." Her voice was steady. "I came here today not to accuse, but to witness. You left us behind. We endured. You erased our names. We wrote them again. And now that we've told the truth, you don't get to define it." She looked around the room. Echo was real. We were real. And we still are. No one interrupted. Outside, the crowd grew. Inside, the silence held. Then Ainsley said, "I request the formal reinstatement of all Echo records under active military recognition." Wexler nodded slowly. "We'll take that under immediate review." Serena stood. "We didn't ask to return, but we won't disappear again." Then she walked out. No handcuffs, no escort, just the sound of boots across marble, steady as ever. The wind at Grayson Range was different now, softer, less judgmental. It carried no commands, no orders, just dry air moving through the old firing lanes. Serena Wolf stepped onto the cracked concrete of Lane 7 for the first time since everything broke wide open. The scorch marks from her last demonstration had faded, but the memory hadn't. The black circle and 3 vertical lines had been pressure washed from the concrete. Still, somehow, the ghost of their outline remained. Like everything else about Echo, it refused to vanish. She was alone. By design. She'd requested the range at sunrise, no personnel, no observers, just the space, her rifle, and one final casing. It sat in a velvet-lined box near the platform, polished, engraved with the number 47. For the 47 days she survived in silence after being abandoned. She assembled her weapons slowly, not because she had to, but because every motion carried meaning now. Each piece slid into place with familiar weight. She didn't rush it. The scope clicked once as it locked in. The same scope, the one she'd modified, rebuilt, carried through mountains and silence and fire. She lay prone, pressed her cheek to the stock and stared downrange. One target. 2 kilometers out. No tech assists, no sensors. Just wind, glass and instinct. Her breath slowed. Her heart did not. In the days since the hearing, the world had shifted. Military forums turned into battlegrounds of truth and denial. Some officers claimed she'd fabricated everything. Others quoted her in training lectures. Congress debated full recognition of Echo's service record. Civilians demanded accountability. No one could agree on what to do next. But one thing had become clear: they couldn't pretend Echo didn't exist anymore. At Joint Command, Ainsley submitted his resignation, effective immediately. No speeches, no fanfare, just a hand-delivered envelope with his stars inside and a final memo: history doesn't wait for permission. In Florida, a former analyst turned whistleblower dropped the last file, the full Echo deactivation order. It contained 6 names previously blacked out. Each one is now publicly identified as deliberately erased. Veterans across the country sent letters, some in anger, some in thanks, some are in awe. One simply wrote, "I never believed anyone would stand up again." But then I saw her walk into that room. At a training facility in Nevada, a wall mural was painted in silence by 4 instructors. It showed a sniper silhouette against a storm. On the shoulder, 3 faint lines in a circle. Beneath it, they remembered. But none of that was here now, none of it at Grayson. Only the wind and the trigger. Serena adjusted for wind drift. She didn't check the shot twice, didn't calculate impact beyond instinct. The rifle cracked. A single bullet sliced through 2 kilometers of morning air. Downrange, the metal target rang once. Dead center. A perfect echo. She waited. No applause, no command, no confirmation, just peace. Serena stood, walked to the box, and placed the weapon back inside. She closed it carefully, then removed the velvet lining and folded it around the single-use casing. She didn't lock it. She didn't have to. By the time she left the range, the sun had begun to rise over the old tower. At the entrance, Ramos stood with his arms crossed, a duffel slung over one shoulder. He hadn't spoken since she arrived. Now he offered a small envelope. She took it, opened it. Inside, a card, blank, except for the symbol in ink. Below it, one line: "We're ready." Serena nodded, then walked past him into whatever came next. At Capitol Hill, Wexler stood before a closed chamber. "We vote today," she said quietly, "to recognize, to repair, or to rewrite again." A voice behind her asked, "And if they choose silence?" She didn't turn. They won't, because the world had already heard the shot. In a dusty farmhouse in Utah, Keene replaced the drive into its hiding spot and turned off the radio. He looked out the window at the empty horizon. Wick sat beside a cracked laptop, screen off. Her face was unreadable. "We don't vanish," she said. "We just wait until someone listens." Serena didn't return to the cities. Not yet. But sometimes she was seen by hikers, by lost truckers, by old teammates who knew where to look. She never stayed, just passed through, left a casing here, a folded note there. One scout found a stone circle near a tree in Montana. In the center, a piece of slate etched by hand, still 100%. And beneath it, Echo lives, not in memory, in motion, in silence, but never again in hiding. They said she disappeared, that she was a ghost from a forgotten war, a phantom born of code names, scorched files, and redacted memories. But ghosts don't fire 1,800-meter rounds with surgical precision. Ghosts don't walk into congressional hearings without permission. Ghosts don't leave behind casings marked with history and scarred silence that refused to stay buried. Serena Wolf wasn't a myth. She was the consequence of silence, the cost of obedience, the price paid when the mission outlives the soldier. She didn't ask for glory. She didn't want revenge. She only wanted the truth to stand longer than the men who erased it. And now, because of her, it does. Because of Echo, it will. What started as a training exercise became a testimony. What began as a recovery order became a reckoning. A woman once labeled expendable reminded the most powerful systems in the world that skill can be trained, protocol can be forged, but memory has teeth. She walked through deserts, mountains, and data lines, carrying names that were never meant to be remembered, and made them unforgettable. This wasn't the story of a sniper. This was the story of what happens when you bury the truth beneath politics, chain it in sealed archives, burn the paper trail and think no one will ever come looking. Because someone always does. Someone always reloads. The casings she left weren't warnings. They were timestamps, markers, declarations that some units may vanish from rosters but never from reality. Some protocols may shut down but they don't die, and some women, you don't hunt them down, you just hope they never aim your direction. So to those who watched, who followed this story through every twist, every flashback, every coded whisper in the static, you now know the names they wanted forgotten. You've seen the pattern they tried to scrub, and maybe, just maybe, you'll ask why it had to be erased at all. This was the final shot, the one that couldn't be silenced. And if you're still here, still listening, still watching, then you're part of what comes next. You're part of the memory now. You're part of Echo. Let us know where you're watching from. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What moment hit you hardest? And if you believe in stories that were never meant to survive but did anyway, subscribe to Veteran Biker, because next time, the ghost might not be alone.